Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello again, everybody. Today is December 8th, and we have another one returning in a couple of days. It is about it is activating our entire energy path of Mars. And Mars is going to be going through its 2-year retrograde, which it returns in Cancer and Leo. Boy, I'm retrograding as I think, and that's why I can't even speak. I'm just going to get to the point. This is Planet Buzz, and we're ready to talk.
Focusing on perspectives of pattern planet cycle relationships and understanding their archetypal energy consciousness, reflecting through history, current events, mythology, and philosophical questions, these are the members of Planet Buzz.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
And I'm Dr. Laura Tad. I work as a spiritually oriented psychological astrologer with students and clients around the world. As a counselor, writer, and educator, I love helping people recognize their inner strengths, take advantage of auspicious moments, and navigate times of challenge with greater ease. On my own podcast, Mythic Sky Storytime, I discuss astrology, mythology, and actualizing our full potential. Learn more at mythicsky.com.
Plus, a special guest who we will introduce in just a short moment.
And as the ancient Hermetic Code reveals,
as below, so above. As above, so below.
Hi, Laura. Dr. Tad, it's great to see you again.
Good to be back.
Yeah, and I realized as I was listening to all of this that this is very paramount for retrograde in reviewing all the notes, everything that one is determining how to move forward. One forgets where they are at the moment. It's like, oy vey. And maybe it's because Mercury is with it. But what I'd wanted to say before we introduce our master astrologer is that it's really about the toggle between our legacy and what we want to manifest and our roots of foundation. It's the synergy of this whole energy happening. Yeah. And also that I am on a couple of radio stations. Of course, we're online everywhere. And that's also full disclosure of my mumble jumble. So let's get to Lesley Francis, our wonderful guest hello, Lesley, who was with us for so long. And Lesley is a master astrologer. She is a professional astrologer, an intuitive consultant, author, facilitator on online classes, workshops, panels, a retreat instructor. And Lesley developed her own approach to astrology called purpose-centered astrology. In 2019 and 2020, Lesley authored part of the Llewellyn Sun Sign, or she authored the entire Llewellyn Sun Sign book. Yes, ma'am. And I have them on my shelf. Currently, and for many years, she's one of the charter members of the Edmonton Astrological Society and the president. It is the oldest. Chris McRae formed that, and we'll go into that a little bit at halftime, after halftime, when Lesley talks about the events. And she created her own astrology oracle, star cards, and I believe is writing a book about star cards. And you can contact her at her name, lesleyfrancis.com. So we are reuniting, just like the retrograde said.
Hey.
Yeah, very good. Well, here we are. We'll begin I guess identifying here, and this is a panel just to show with our websites, and it'll be at various spots. Laura's at a mythic sky, and I'm at cosmos. Here we are in the universe. Just astro can jump into Mars, which is just on the outside of Earth. Takes 2 years to orbit around the sun, twice as long as we do. And that exact retrograde will be December 6th, which was 2 days ago. We're in the midst of it, until February 24th. So it goes from 6 degrees, 10 minutes in Cancer to 17 degrees. No, that was Leo. It goes from 17 degrees Cancer to 6 degrees Leo. Thank you. And feel free to jump in. I'll move along until here we are. What are these archetypes? It's a whole period, isn't it? From October 5th, when it was the pre-shadow in Cancer, and after February, that date, which was the date?
24th.
Yeah, thank you. The 24th. It's going to move gradually back. It'll move into Leo, and it won't be until May 2nd, although Leo doesn't finish until June sometime.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just to quickly, before we jump into charts, just more generally, right? So what are we talking about? Mars going retrograde in the pre and post shadow, right? So we were in that pre-shadow, right, for the last several months. It just turned on his heels, 2 days ago, as you were saying. And so really the whole fall and winter and then on into spring, we are in this energy and of going back over things that we've already done, right? If Mars is in astrology more generally, right, it's where we get our drive, our ability to be proactive, and all of that in review right now. Yeah.
It's very significant. It's such a core element as the outer planets are all shifting. It's like, who are we to fit into all of that? It's dynamic. I always think of dynamic, but with Mars, this really seems to be, because it's internal too, so internal.
And this particular one just happens to be, at least part of it, coinciding with the Mercury retrograde, right? So we've got some extra potent retrograde energy going on to have two personal planets retrograde simultaneously.
And I might add, which I hadn't before, that Mars usually goes through a sign in 2 months. And so this 7-month period, as always, every 2 years, really hits home with us. And our title was Action, which it is, Reaction, which, looking at the retrograde, is, as you helped coin this, and because then it's a action. We get to reassess the whole action part.
And I think of Mars even direct as reactionary. Mars is where we get our temper too, right? So Mars can be reactionary as an archetype. And then in its retrograde manifestation, right, then it's reacting, it's acting again.
Yes.
But whether retrograde or direct, it can be reactionary.
One other factor that I'm reminded about is that they're ruled by the sun and the moon. Mm-hmm. That has everything to do with the new moon cycle to begin with, and our ego and our emotional basis. So it's a paramount retrograde.
Yeah, it's a powerful one.
Hopefully, Lesley, I think she fell off. I know she's from Edmonton, Canada, and right now they have a stormy weather up there, not like me in Hawaii. Too bad. But she brought up this idea of risk. I love that. And in our chat, I brought up a couple of these questions. I was hoping she'd be here to expand on it. But here we are, Laura. We can always manage. So,
well, I think with that, there is archetypally, if you think about Mars and that idea of risk, what are you willing to risk? Are you willing to take the action necessary that might make you vulnerable?
Yes.
Ultimately, you're going after a goal, you're seeking something, but that may involve risk in terms of pushing through the inertia that can be that more Saturnian energy, that block
of not sure you want to go through, that Mars sort of insists upon pushing through anyway, right? It's very Aries archetypally. So it's that ram that's going to push through whatever it encounters. But that absolutely can involve risk, because you may or may not accomplish what you're going after.
And it may really sabotage something that later the core of you needs to totally adjust to, because that whole dialogue between Cancer that looks for safety and protection of self and others has that shell feeling quite vulnerable. They're so sensitive and caring. It's a beautiful sign. And in Leo, we get to manifest and show our creativity. And in a sense, though, if we're too rambunctious, perhaps, or didn't quite follow through, well, it's not a negative, because later, going back to Cancer, we might realize, oh, I didn't realize that shadow side of me, something I need to address. So it's involved. Well, Lesley is back. I don't see her, but I'm sure she'll be here. Ah, there she is. She's coming. Ta-da! Well, we attacked risk. Just like you, the retrograde, you came back. And I think, what have we gathered? We didn't really discuss, but we did thoroughly investigate this whole concept that you reminded us about, Mars being risking life, rhythm of risk. Yeah, I think it's that rhythm of risk that is. Do you have a comment?
And everybody does have their own rhythm when it comes to risk. We tend to think that if Mars is in a difficult placement in your chart, that it means that, you're going to huddle in a corner and never try anything. It has more to do with how the sign Mars is in has a lot to do with how you go about taking risk in your life. And of course, when we're talking about a retrograde phase, you got to go internally first before you can choose to do anything externally. I don't think it necessarily means that, again, that you do nothing until it goes direct, or it has to do with, much as what you were saying is, Leo is, what do you love? And where do you want to put your heart? And then it retrogrades into Cancer, and then you look to see, I guess, what you have to nurture you going forward in terms of what you'd like to accomplish.
And that sense, this really spells it out. And I'm reminded, Laura, what you said about tribe, because Cancer can not just be your nucleus family that you came from or you created, but especially in astrology, your brothers, sisters, family that you create through our connections. Well, going ahead.
Yeah, well, and I think as, if we think about that with it going into Cancer, and it's just happens to be coinciding with a time of year that a lot of us go back home, right? For the holidays. And so there may be some stuff that comes up for people where, I've always found, I've gotten to the point where I'm not shocked by it anymore, but I'm aware of it, that like the amount you can regress around siblings, no matter how old you are, you're suddenly 15 again, even if you're well into adulthood.
Absolutely. I remember this entire dialogue with myself, but like an onion, as they say, there were peelings, because I realized at first it was my personal growth experience with my career choice at that moment, which was quite public, interacting with the public. And then, as you say, surprise that, oh dear, what I had totally forgotten with my family. But it involves assumptions, I think, that realizing you need to, that personal point needs to be somewhat objectified. I didn't mean to elaborate, but I hear you very well.
Yeah, that idea of like going back to family. So maybe there's something there to risk, to repair too.
Good.
Family in the retrograde.
Right.
And, you can be highly defensive, because Cancer is quite defensive. And things that might not normally bother you, depending on, of course, where this retrograde is taking place in your personal chart, there's just a lot of ground to cover when it retrogrades. The retrograde process involves two signs, not just one. So there's, trying to integrate those two energies, because, Leo's rah, 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 and it doesn't always have to be loud, but it's still rah, rah, rah. And Cancer is, don't look at me until I've decided you can.
Yeah, I'm processing. Exactly. Oh boy, what did you just, that just stopped me. But, oh boy. Okay, we'll go on. That's too bad. All right. Yes. Oh, that's why we have 7 months, because it is a process. Thank you. Laura, you brought these up. I think we'll just note them, that Mars is in Leo retrograde on a 15-year
Roughly,
basis.
I was seeing sort of this 15 or so year cycle, but I actually had to go back further than the 1981. It was 77, 78 was the most recent time I was seeing Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer. So even though it's this relatively common cycle, I had to go back over 40 years.
Do you know that's a Chiron
to find? Well, it was 78, so that's 77. It was December 77, and then March 78. To find it toggling back and forth between Leo and Cancer.
Well, I think Chiron was still in Aries then, wasn't it?
And it was in Taurus in 77.
Oh, it had already gone into Taurus. Okay.
It kind of identifies.
It might have gone, it was retrograde. It may have gone back into Aries right around that. I have it in Taurus, born a little earlier, but it did go retrograde. So,
because it could be quite a healing aspect in the sense of these two signs that are so personal. Well, thank you very much. It began on the 6th, 2 days ago, at least, depending when you're listening to it, but it's previous, shortly. We're within this long, extended period. And on the East Coast, it was in the afternoon. It's 6:32:56. So you could say 6:33 p.m.
Just a lot of sixes with this particular one, right? It went at 6 p.m. on the 6th at 6 degrees.
That's right. Yeah, I like indeed. Looking at it, okay, go ahead, Lesley. You've got a thought?
I just wanted to say what little I remember about numerology, but isn't 6 a relationship number?
It is. I was born on June 6th, so I can remember in 1966 thinking, oh, well, some people don't think that's a good number, but I didn't. I can really just give me any retrograde, I'll go off. But yeah, and I was just trying to remember, because sometimes I think evolutionary was 6, but 6 is family. It's connective. It's got a 3 and a 2 in there. So yeah, it's partnerships and connections. Yeah. Let's see. I think.
Well, do we want to look at that?
Okay, we can.
Oh, I guess because you have the next one that's just a couple of hours later, right?
It is. The next day, which would be yesterday, was really a punch. Because Mars, in his grand path of being retrograde, is conjunct with some buddies. It's not alone. And it culminated yesterday, pretty much exact within minutes. Venus of our desires, of our heart, an attraction magnetically, Ceres of our nurturing, sustaining that we can offer because we've gone through our grief and we've discovered this, and Pluto that's always transmuting, regenerating, transforming, molding these things into deep inner chambers, is in a networking, communicating Aquarius. And they're in opposition to this mojo, this action-oriented, let's get the job done. I know I've got a job and I'm doing it. And it's just desire of action, which you can expand on. Yes.
Well, my friend Faye Blake, who lives in Amsterdam, says that really Ceres and Pluto are enemies because of the mythology behind the story of Pluto
and Persephone.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's interesting that they're with Venus, and so there is an attempt to integrate some, because Venus to me is also about integration to some degree, like building bridges, connecting with people. So trying to connect those very different energies. And, Ceres is about nurturing, but essentially only when you don't take her child away from her.
Yes.
So there's some very interesting energies with that opposed Mars. So how do we balance all of these differing energies? And I know we're going to talk about Mars opposed Pluto because we haven't quite got there yet.
Yeah, that'll be.
But again, there's some hugely my brain just went confrontational aspects to be dealt with and trying. And of course, again, it's about how do you go to one extreme or then do you go to another extreme? And oppositions are about two ends of the same, stick.
Mm-hmm.
And Pluto's always about extremes. So we're in for a fun ride.
And Venus, I think, Laura, you had a thought here I heard bubbling forth, but I love this perspective because Venus, with the highest regard, is our love, and love is able to mitigate because we give, it's a caring of the other. So there's a recalibration, you could say, a healing, really healing.
Yeah, well, I just think too, this more generally, right? This, with that idea of this polarity energy and of what's transforming, and that it can be combative, those opposing energies, but ideally it's how we bring them into harmony, right? It's not, it doesn't have to be binary. It's not one or the other. It's how to hold that tension. And so that being a potential as that aspect perfects with the Mars retrograde, as it gets earlier into Leo, it'll perfect into the opposition.
Well, I think it's really interesting because, we've had a lot of polarity stuff going on globally,
Yeah.
And of course, us versus them is very much the Aries Libra, can be the Aries Libra axis. And here we have an opportunity to begin to look, because of the retrograde motion, to really look inside and ask ourselves, are the actions that we're taking really furthering anything beneficial, positive, life affirming, evolving, growing, whatever adjective you'd like to plunk in there after I already. So I think this is a major opportunity.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that, Laura, because that's really what triggered what I just said, is like thinking about how this might actually be a blessing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It must promote growth. It's absolutely right. And I'm realizing too, if we were just to look at dispositors again, that Mars and Leo is the sun. It's talking all the time and re-evaluating, as Mercury's in retrograde right now, with our big picture of belief systems. So yes, there's
and that pulls in this mutual reception opposition that we've got going
right.
on.
That's
that perfected today, right?
Oh,
of the Sun Jupiter opposition, right? If it was 15 degrees yesterday, then it's 16 today. So we get this mutual reception going on of the Sun and Jupiter, even amplifying that big ideas even more.
There's a little static going on.
What are we?
Is that there's static? Do you hear that static?
Yeah.
Lesley, don't touch your hearing. Oh well, we'll go ahead.
But so with these big ideas, big picture things, right? That's already just Sag in general, but you amplify that with the opposition with the Jupiter and Gemini, and then bring in the Mars being connected with that by rulership. It's like, so how are we going to act on those big ideas? And maybe we have to go retrace our steps because of the retrograde and say, oh, okay, wait, to really get those ideas out there, we have to do some review and maybe go back and see what is missing for us to be successful going forward.
Here we have in point another plateau of this growth, because Mercury actually, I believe, goes direct this day, but on the 13th, Mars and Mercury, these two energetic action and mental energies, are in a sextile for the entire day. And it creates this other advantageous aspect. So there's a really build going on with...
No, trine.
It's actually a trine, yeah.
It's a trine. It's Leo to Sag is a trine.
Yes, but it's a sextile to Venus. Mercury to Venus.
Mercury sextile.
Yeah. Venus to, It's and that's why it's a Thales, point of Thales, because it involves, right, with the opposition, both a sextile and a trine, meaning that we're empowered to just really keep working in the next couple of weeks. We'll come up with constructive ways to do this dialogue that we've been talking about, because they are in this mutual reception. I hate to talk too much astrology lingo. So if I'm talking around the bush, I'm not. I'm being very particular, but I'm addressing that this is only going to culminate more. Yeah, we're going to there's hope on the horizon.
And interesting ideas coming about in the next couple of weeks with what's going on, right? So just seeing that there may be insight that comes in that sort of aha eureka ways with that, the way that stuff is lining up.
Yeah. And that'll be just in time for the full moon too, which will be on December 15th in Sag, which again goes back. Now, this one, I don't know why I put that here. I don't want it, because that's January 6th.
That was the first, no, I don't know what that was supposed to be.
Nope, I don't know what happened. But anyway, I think we have covered the first part, and we'll come back just like a retrograde, but we love you all. Thank you, Lesley and Laura, and we'll be back. Thanks. Stay tuned. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Sagittarius, ruled by the largest of all planets, Jupiter, the Roman god, or Zeus by the ancient Greeks. By leaving a cycle based on power and powerlessness of life and death and regeneration, involving committed relationships, Sagittarius energy finds meaning for an expanded perspective and potential for actualization in their search for truth. As a mutable fire sign depicted by the centaur, Sagittarius is adventurous and seeks the beyond. Sagittarius travels to far places, physically and mentally, to find the truths of life.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to the Ananda Institute of Living Yoga, we cover the world of animals. This week, December 15th, it's Behavior Training and Healing Sunday with me, and talk with your human or animal loved ones on this side or the other, personal awareness coaching and readings with Natasha Venter. Hope you can join us and plan to call in with your questions for either one of us or a personal reading with Natasha. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Bored with the other stations, hammering away on the same old talking points? Try Alternative Talk 1150 and get some variety.
Hi again. Here we are. And when I was thinking about that, when I didn't mean to say I hate talking astrology at all, I love it. But because, just to go back, recap, here we are, massive retrograde time with having Mercury in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Gemini, having this mutual reception, as we call it. It's really intensifying and retrograde at the time, and also answering as it is to Sagittarius looks at Jupiter. So it's all this tribal talk. I find it suddenly realized to me that it's translating our language. And how do we translate, which I know all of us are interested in doing, translating this astrology talk, astrologically speaking, to the wider audience that can grasp it, who haven't studied it obsessively. Maybe they have great recipes, or else maybe they know how to launch rockets and things like that So that's my, it all ties in. And I'm forgiving myself for bringing up all this, if I were to wonder, because it is retrograde time. Okay, Lesley, this is our moment to bring focus to our guests. And I think that'll go away, that little buzz that people hear. Lesley Francis, Edmonton, Alberta, at her website, Lesley Francis, and Dr. Laura Tad in Georgia. They're at mythicsky.com. And myself in Hawaii here in Kailua Kona is talkcosmos.com. And I have that YouTube channel. So thank you for subscribing and following. Lesley, you are the president of Edmonton Astrological Society. And I know you have open membership and a wonderful fee that is totally affordable.
Yeah. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't know we offered a half-year membership.
Yeah, I know it is even better. I don't know if people go away for vacation.
At this point in time, not sure that we do, but whatever.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just wanted to plug it a little bit because, we offer, this coming year, we've got 2 online workshops and 5 online webinars. And the fee that you pay is for the whole year. There's no extra. Okay, let's it's Mercury. We don't have any other fees attached to it. And so for anyone listening, especially if you're American, as Sue indicated, it's very affordable. I like that word, affordable. We don't want to use other words.
No, affordable and a great value with getting these.
And in August, we're going to be doing something with Ryan Butler that I don't think he's ever done before, which is a talisman making workshop that will be taking place over the weekend of August 9th and 10th. Now, this we will not be doing online. And as I just said, of course, the Canadian dollar tends. Let's just face it, if you're an American, you can really afford to come here.
And that's a beautiful time to visit up in Canada.
And August is a great time to come to Canada. And Alberta, you can go to the Rockies.
Oh,
there's lots of things you can do. It doesn't just have to be to come and hang out with a bunch of other astrologers. And the truth is, I think that as far as the talisman making workshop part of it, Ryan might be doing a lecture. I don't know if you actually need to know an awful lot of astrology to actually make the talisman.
No.
And then we're going to energize them at the appropriate time when Venus is really prominent in the sky.
Oh, beautiful.
So, and our website, I don't know if you had it there, is astrologyedmonton.com. So please check out everything there. Yes, and you can email Mel. You did your research.
Yeah, so Mel, astrologyedmonton.com. And also, just to add, because we're trying to keep this a little short and concise, but this is perfect.
Oh, yes, and Laura's speaking.
Yes, Laura is
going to mention that.
On March 14th, and she is on there, and we'll be talking about family dynamics. Thank you so much. This is exciting. Now, Laura, mention once again, just a little bit.
Yeah. So the bigger thing I've got coming up is this week-long retreat in Nicaragua that I've been doing annually with my dear friend Michelle that I've known for almost 30 years somehow. And so it's the Goddess Awakening Retreat on the Pacific coast of Nicaragua, right on the border of Costa Rica. You can see Costa Rica from the beach. We're so close. And there's delicious, organic, yummy food and yoga every day on this beautiful bamboo platform in the middle of the jungle overlooking the ocean. And then I'll be doing different workshops on astrology and myth and meditation.
Between the two of you, I just thought about that. You have a winter and a summer extravaganza in wonderful locations, perfect and ideal for them, and also at reasonably located spots. And more than that, it really accentuates the entire Pluto in Aquarius, with particularly the three that we just explored that happened as of yesterday in Aquarius, of transformation, our values, what we love, and finding more astrologers or people of like-minded. Beautiful. So go to mythicsky.com and contact Laura, and go to Edmonton Astrological.
And if you register in the next 3 weeks, there's you get $200 off. So
woo, that counts.
Do it register before the end of the year.
Yeah, you can. Here with Talk Cosmos, I have 2 events that just happened, are very current. We do focus on the moon. Archetypal symbols was just last weekend, and it was about this Sagittarius moon, and we look at it from a metaphysical standpoint. We involve the astrology with Sabian symbols and tarot, numerology, a little mythology, and pull it together, so because it's a vision point. It's a new intentional point for everybody. And prior to that, Kaleidoscope Visions now looks at all the moon cycles, the major 4. There could be 8, but 4. And in fact, today is the first quarter, and then there'll be that the full moon later. But next week we have special year focus. We have several from here on out, and archetypal symbols is coming back to explore what are some themes generally that we've been reviewing that are pumping into the next year. And following on the solstice will be New Vibes with Linda Berry, Master Vibrational Astrology. And she gives messages for the entire season that are very apropos in a very understandable way that vibrational astrology gives. At the end of the year, I haven't listed it, but we are going to have a review. AstroJam is also doing something different, where we're going to get all 8 of us dialoguing and paneling and questions and looking at the entire year. So therefore, thank you very much for liking and subscribing to Talk Cosmos and my YouTube channel at Talk Cosmos. Let's look at what Mars is acting behind, not directly approaching again for a second time, because this started last year when Pluto actually entered Aquarius at the very beginning at 0 degrees, but then it went away. Pluto was in Aquarius for 2 months and then returned just on the 19th of November. And prior to that, ingress into, if people are following this, in other words, it starts, there's always a moment to reassess something. So these are the dates. I'll just give them out and we'll go on.
So when there is a retrograde, with any opposition in that retrograde, you end up having the opposition 3 times, because you have the direct, the retrograde, and the direct. And so that's why we were looking at the Capricorn one that just happened a month ago, because that was the lead into this. That was the very last Pluto-Mars opposition with Pluto and Capricorn any of us will ever experience in our lifetimes. But we get very quickly 2 more Mars-Pluto oppositions, but now going forward in Aquarius.
Thank you. And the only reason I brought up the 0 degrees was because it was 0 degrees. I thought, well, back then, maybe there's some flashback that we can remember. We have here the chart that Oh, well, that's just basically for people's review. We're not going to integrate this chart, but for people, if they were curious, I did show the one in 2023. Interestingly, it has a T-square with, meaning really a lot of action-oriented thought with Jupiter, which was 0 degrees Taurus, as it entered, as it does once a year, into a new sign. Of course, now it's in Gemini. But let's go ahead. For the more recent period that you mentioned, when it first started, this cycle of 3 going direct and retrograde. So this is a path where we're initiating our thoughts and work, was November 3rd here in the United States, a bit just before our elections. And it was at the last degree in Cancer and Capricorn. So it was really at that anoretic moment looking at this parental, you could say. Cancer and Capricorn can be quite parental. It's how we're nurtured. It's our father, mother, we say, whether we were say one is the other.
Well, I think looking at this just more quickly rather than looking at the upcoming, but that this point, at least for the Mars, will be revisited.
Okay.
Right? And so being aware that what was going on for you in early November may show up at least thematically again as it gets back.
Yes,
just as it gets back into Cancer.
You've reminded me that really, since it was parental, it's roles. Like instead of Pluto in really thinking Pluto in Capricorn, where it's archetypal. I mean, not hierarchy. With there's a top leader. So it's like we're ditching and recomposting a lot of ideas. So here's the second one coming up on January 6th. And this is the Aries point, meaning it's 0 degrees for the ascendant there. So don't look at the houses because we are international. And again, the degree that they're opposing each other is in the very early 1 degree, Leo and Aquarius, in just 8 minutes.
Yeah. So then, right. So what you were experiencing what's that date that you have there? That doesn't work with what I'm looking at.
Yeah. January 6th.
It has Pluto in Capricorn. It's not the right chart.
Oh, right. Somehow I did. Okay. You know what? I mean, we can talk all we want about. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Good grief.
Yeah, this is still the November chart.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It just takes time.
All right, there we go. That's the first.
No, but that's Aries. That's not the April. Right one either.
This has to be it.
Yeah, this is it. Okay.
Thank you. Read the Capricorn.
Thank you. Lead on.
Well, so I mean, we're also dealing with the Mercury retrograde, right? So
at the moment,
yes. I mean, there were a couple things when we pulled up this chart earlier that to me jumped out, and that's, what is sometimes called the mystic rectangle, but that we get the Mars-Pluto opposition has both Mars and Pluto at the point of Thales to the nodes, creating this, right? So you're looking at sextiles connected by 2 trines.
Yeah, they're called a half sail. John called it, remember, last week. So, yeah.
And so it's I think it's more potent than just an opposition, because particularly in terms of the long-term impact, because it's bringing in the nodes. So what's and we get this, so Mars, our drive, how we're going forward, Pluto saying, but you've got to change it. You can't just go the direction you think you want to go. Or go deeper, or it can't just be about the self, which is very Leonian. How are you going to have it also be about the collective with the Aquarian energy and the long-term impact of that by looking at the nodes and how whole swaths of society are tied into the actions that we take or don't take.
And 0 degrees. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, because the North Node is at the Aries point.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And what's Venus doing at that point? It's at 0 Pisces. Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
There's a lot of beginnings energy, a lot of, if you were talking about the tarot deck, a lot of the Fool kind of energy, like just wanting, and in a way to let loose. just let me do what I want to do. But the Mars and the Venus are quincunx.
Yeah.
And they've just yeah, I don't want to talk astrology. They've just come out of a somewhat challenging aspect where they can't see each other and they don't really understand what the other
they need to learn. They need to learn what each other is about.
Well, and it's interesting because, of course, Venus is in a sign that it really loves being in. So it's going to be challenging that Mars, to say, kind of connected to what Laura said, which is, so do you really think it's about you? Like, we need a little bit of kindness. We need a little bit of compassion. I need you to hear me, not just let the words, whether you're talking or writing, flow by without my actually absorbing them.
That feels so good. Forgiveness, thinking of empathy. Yeah, Pisces.
And is that not the degree that Mercury went? What degree did it go retrograde at? I forget.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, with trying to get all the details, but I can find it out.
Just let it go. It doesn't matter. I can look that up after we're finished talking.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah, but still, there are many times where that's what astrology does for us astrologers, and it touches again in another way of looking at it. And that's really all life is these plateaus of experiences that manage us to kind of move from one thing to the next.
The other thing I did want to acknowledge was that when Mars stationed to go retrograde, the moon was in Aquarius in that chart, and it's in Aquarius again.
Yeah.
Which
as it opposes.
It was 22 degrees, Gemini.
You mean Sagittarius?
Sagittarius, thank you.
So it's at exactly the degree that it went retrograde.
Yeah.
I just really think that, you start to see these themes, and we've been talking, when we were discussing what we're going to talk about, Mercury keeps on knocking on the door and wanting to be acknowledged in some way, shape, or form. Hence, it decided to disconnect my internet.
I know. Yes. Very true. The messenger.
Some themes repeating that you don't always see. Well, I mean, I don't, at least in, the moon's being in Aquarius again, and Mercury back at the degree it went retrograde at. So we still keep getting opportunities to revisit things and as far as Mercury is concerned, then take, now that it's direct and it's out of its shadow period, things are going to mentally really start to come together.
Sounds
which
good.
is going to be really helpful considering how powerful that mystic rectangle is.
Yeah. I did have a chart showing because we had discussed the fact, I'll go back to this. Whoops. Oh, rats. Oh, I click and never mind. You don't need to know all my trauma.
Sorry, I shouldn't
onward.
I had my trauma earlier.
No, grief is part of it, but this is
the
grief. Yeah, we're back to the same point again. And what I was going to say was, no, this does show. Thank you. Somehow the universe is helping me in some Cancerian sideways motion.
So this is casting it for DC, because this will be the day that the election is Congress will ratify the
moon
election.
Right. Thank you. And it's the moon, interestingly, as you were talking about these parallels and these reconnectives, just for that energy, because we are all part of this globe and the U.S. does make its waves known globally. The moon here is very close to our natal moon, because our natal moon is 27 Aquarius, I believe. So, gee whiz, I guess we better listen up and have some of that compassion that Venus is talking about, that you're speaking of, Laura, our friend up north from Canada.
You mean Lesley?
Lesley. Oh, I said yes. I was staring at Lesley.
It was Lesley speaking, and
well, I'd be happy
And
to
after
trade
this stuff.
places with you, Laura, and you could come to Canada. I can go live in Georgia for a while.
I mean, it's
winter.
cold for Georgia, but it's not cold. Canada cold.
Well, it's not too bad right now. It warmed up a bit.
Oh. Well, the third one is coming along, and that will be quite a bit later. Now, remember, the nodes are changing. That means the lunar nodes, we're leaving the relationship on a personal basis. One earlier than that, it was in Taurus, our own resources and how we exchange them. Then it was like, who am I? Let's go get my identity. And what does that mean with the people I'm with and finding those partnerships? Now we're going into more abstract collective, the unconscious of Pisces, which is that which you had mentioned, the compassion and forgiveness, and it's so many more things, and Virgo. Anyway, the whole and the outer planets, Neptune will have gone into Aries. It's potent.
Yeah, I mean, so at this point, then, it's direct. It's no longer retrograde, but we've got this last opposition for this cycle, and not too far from being out of the shadow. It's only got another 3 degrees before it's out of the shadow. But even though it's direct, it's still in the retrograde shadow. So it still may be having echoes of what's going on now because
earlier.
of that. Up back until the fall, the November. And but that is like, Neptune changing signs, radically different energy, right? No one alive has had Neptune in Aries, right? So radically different energy that we're moving into by that time.
I'm looking at that mystic square that we've brought attention to before. And folks, if you're looking at this, you'll see that box, that rectangle. And so it's trines and sextiles, which is a flowing, connecting energy trines want to be connected. But I'm looking at the symbols that it's relating to, and I'm seeing Juno there. And along with opposite of Uranus, meaning our what we're partnered with, because you were talking about partnerships, our relationships. What are we married to? Who do we? And it might be sudden and unpredictable and revolutionary, as far as revolutionary in the sense that it's pivots us in a whole nother direction, which I personally, having quite a bit of Uranus, thinks, that could be okay. I say that now before the boat starts to rock.
Well, and I think Juno, what are we loyal to? Right. That's part of that. And that Pluto, going back to the Pluto opposition so again, where are we putting our energy? How much of it? And with the direct energy, so don't forget the self in the need to be inclusive and make sure that you're taking into account community and the larger group, that the polarity of that Aquarius Leo energy is not being self-sacrificing, similar to that sort of Aries Libran polarity, right? That we don't want to be giving away our power for the sake of keeping the peace necessarily, right? That can actually be problematic. And so I think that's actually what happens to Juno. That's why she's so angry. That's why she's tagged with being jealous, as she agreed to co-rule with Zeus and he as Hera, and he reneged, and she's pissed. Right?
That is so helpful. We have
what that's about.
Right. But it's so helpful as we wrap up here, because right now we are experiencing the Leo, and then it'll be the Cancer. And one is very caring and gives, and the other is magnanimous and generous. And it's true, we want to celebrate everybody's successes, but remember, as here, transformation is honesty. So if we're going forward by being real and knowing ourselves, so we go from the heart. Well, both of you have great hearts, and I appreciate our time. And we can talk for a moment, Lesley, if you had a thought you want to squeeze in.
No, I pretty much agree with what's been said, but it really is going to be one of the things I did notice is that the moon is only making an aspect to Juno and as a quincunx. So there's some major adjustment, and I really found what Laura had to say interesting. So thanks again for having me come and yak it up with you guys.
Oh, yes. And I just see that some of my slides, we are in a real turmoil of grab it when you can and make the lemonade. I hope you like lemonade, maybe with strawberries.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.